Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we are going to take another look at Lost in Space and some of the theories that we had going from Season 1 and Season 2 before Season 3 drops. So, today's theory is that the Alpha Centauri colony is starving, it's in a terrible place, and it's going to need to be rescued by the crew of the Resolute. Also, this is also tied into a secondary theory that much of the plot of the 2018 Lost in Space show was based off of Shakespeare's The Tempest, which was in turn based off of a letter that Shakespeare got a hold of, which told the story written by William Starsky of the true adventure of the ship the Sea Venture. So, let's start at the beginning with the Sea Venture. The Sea Venture was one of a fleet of ships carrying colonists to a new world. Specifically, they were carrying them from England to Jamestown. However, the convoy was struck by a storm, and the Sea Venture was separated from the other ships. The Sea Venture ended up breaking up and getting stranded on an island in the Bahamas. Fortunately, they had a lot of very smart people on that ship, including a master craftsman who was able to, with the help of the other ones, build two smaller vessels out of the remains of the Sea Venture. Now, this island had previously been visited by another ship that had left a bunch of pigs and rabbits on it, and the colonists were able to kill a bunch of pigs and rabbits, salt the meat, because they had plenty of salt left to preserve it with. Then they continued on to Jamestown. When they arrived in Jamestown, the colony was starving. There's a whole backstory for that too, but it was very poorly managed, centrally planned. Central planning was the main problem that it failed so terribly. And so the ship that they thought was lost returned and actually saved the colony. One of the colonists was a man named William Starsky, who wrote a letter about this to his friend. William Starsky happened to be an author who wasn't very successful. His lady friend, who he wrote the story to, however, showed this letter around because it was such an interesting story. And eventually it fell into the hands of William Shakespeare, who turned it into the play called The Tempest. And I believe Starsky actually sued Shakespeare for essentially copyright violation, and he lost the lawsuit, and it's kind of a sad ending of the story for Starsky. But if that story sounded familiar, it's the same basic plot that the Resolute and the colonists in the Lost in Space show have followed up to this point. There's another connection here. The most famous quote, and one that's very famous in science fiction circles, from The Tempest is when Miranda, the beautiful young daughter of the brilliant scientist/wizard who lives on this island, when she is conversing with another one of the characters, says, "What a brave new world this is that has such wonderful people in it." Something to that effect. A scene very similarly mirrored in an odd scene where Penny and Will are expanding the Jupiter after they get their Jupiter out of the ice on the nameless planet. They're watching what is clearly 100% a piece of propaganda for Alpha Centauri, and Penny says, "Everyone's so beautiful," or something about them all having great abs. Now, it seems like just a frivolous comment by a teenage girl who's trying to avoid doing her chores, but that was propaganda. And Penny calls out something interesting. The colonists who wound up on Alpha Centauri were a bunch of intellectually brilliant people. They were not chosen for their physical beauty. And because that advertisement had only beautiful people in it, it's entirely possible that advertisement was filled on Earth by professional actors and didn't come from Alpha Centauri at all. So, our first piece of evidence from the show that something's wrong at Alpha Centauri is that the only information that the Robinsons have access to is propaganda. And later we see this again because the Marine starts grilling Dawn West for information that she should have had access to before that. This was when they were on the fragment of the Resolute that had crashed with the Jupiters on the nameless planet. And this is also when Dawn West reveals that he's been smuggling things like whiskey and steak. Now, we know that there was a ton of animals already shipped to Alpha Centauri, so steak should be readily available. Unless there's predators eating their cows, they should have plenty of cows by now. And Don West was shipping whiskey, which is a very simple item to produce, and they should have distilleries of their own on Alpha Centauri. And even if it wasn't super high quality whiskey, Don West shouldn't have been able to make a profit snuggling whiskey when every ounce counts, and he would have had to worry about the weight of things she was shipping. So you also see that the Resolute was shipping coffee mugs. Now, every Jupiter has a 3D printer, so if someone needs something as simple as a coffee mug, they should be able to print it fairly easy, which suggests that there's no industrial base on Alpha Centauri. So we know there's something wrong with the agriculture on Alpha Centauri. They aren't able to grow enough cows to make cheap beef, which means they might not be able to grow enough cows at all, and they might be completely out of cows if there's a high death rate, and they haven't gotten any fresh cows from the Resolute in a year. And Alpha Centauri can't produce basic items it needs, such as cups and other items that were going to be shipped down to the surface. Add to that going a year without necessary, perhaps, doctors or medical supplies, or the really complex stuff that couldn't possibly be produced on a planet whose industrial base is only a few years old. So you have medicines, you have specific mechanical parts, you have the knowledge of the specific doctors. These things require constant input from Earth, and with the destruction of the Resolute, even the delay of the Resolute, that hasn't been happening. So it's very, very likely that just like the colony of Jamestown, the colony of Alpha Centauri is starving and is going to be very dependent on the fragmented remains of that ship that was thought lost and is going to be sailing in any day now. So that's my final theory as we go into season 3. Season 3 drops at midnight tonight after this video will air. And I think we're all excited and looking forward to it. I hope you've enjoyed my review of all of the theories from season 1 and season 2. And let's look for answers to our questions. Is Alpha Centauri starving, or is the show just going to overlook the fact that it should be based on all the clues they've dropped? How are the colonists going to get back to Alpha Centauri if all they have are the broken down Fortuna and their individual Jupiters? And did the writers do the actual research into the story behind the story behind the story of Shakespeare's The Tempest and The Sea Venture, both of which stories obviously heavily influenced season 1 and season 2? So if you want some answers to the questions, well, we'll be getting them in season 3 of Lost in Space. If you'd like something to entertain yourself until that comes out, you can go check out the link below the video to get yourself a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, or Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote. Peace out, my wonderful viewers. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, and Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. 2 books in a series of human absurdity. Go check out these short story collections. What will our little green friends think of us when we finally do make it to space? Find out the answer in 2 books of human absurdity. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, and Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Google Play.